Atlasopolis, 18 years prior to RWBY's storyline. Ironwood. We were so guarded about people taking the relic, we never thought about using it. Winter. But sir, why didn't you notify Ozpin of this plan? Ironwood. Ozpin won't go the extra mile to win. We need an advantage and we're gonna get it. Had the shipment from your father arrived? Winter. Yes, the purest grade dust of every kind has arrived. But why do we need it, sir? Ironwood. We need the materials to create the ultimate being, as per Pietro's advice. Has the DNA samples been secured? Winter. Yes, it's on its way here, but why the Ark's DNA? Ironwood. They have the longest history of warfare, and their legend of giving birth to master tacticians is a plus. We need all the qualities of a soldier. Winter. Don't you mean a puppet? By the way we're going, if this relic is going to create a living thing, by my understanding it must go through the process of growth that we all are subjected to. He puts a hand on her shoulder. Ironwood. I know what you're thinking, but if it's one life to save thousands, then I'll gladly be the monster and take that life. No matter what it takes, we will protect Atlas. He turns and moves towards the landing pad as a familiar old man steps out.
Ironwood, Pietro.
Pietro. Ironwood, this is not right. We have no right to be acting like gods. Ironwood. I'm not trying to be like them. After the stories Ozpin shared about them being manipulators, I would rather be myself. Let's proceed to the vault. The Winter Maiden is on her way there with her escorts. Pietro. If I may ask, why did you take Miss Schnee with you? Ironwood. I'm not gonna be around forever. Pietro. You're grooming her to be your successor? Ironwood just nods as Pietro was secretly disgusted. He's taking the lives of children and young ones to ensure Atlas security. If he's willing to create child soldiers, there's no reason to doubt that life doesn't weigh anything to him as long as Atlas' future is secure. Later. Alice Relic Vault. Ironwood, if you would kindly miss. Winter Maiden. Yes, sir. She then opens the vault as she was dismissed, and he, Winter, and Pietro enters. Winter. That staff is the reason why Atlas is floating. Ironwood. Yes, but let's get down to business. He touched the staff as a spirit was released, and he greets them. Ambrose. Greetings. What is it that you require of me? Ironwood. I wish to make the ultimate life form. Ambrose. In order for that, I need catalysts to make life. Ironwood. We need it to possess magic as well. Ambrose. If that's the case, you need dust. Any kind is fine. Ironwood then presents him with the canister holding Arc DNA, as well as an assortment of the highest quality of dust anyone has ever seen. Ambrose floats around and looks at the crystals, inspecting them. Ambrose, interesting choices. Which one do you wish to use? Ironwood. All of them. He rose an eyebrow. Ambrose. I see you want it to be stronger than anything living in this world. Interesting. He waves his arms around and took the canister along with the crystals, and he spun them around as light begins emanating from him, as the people in the area was blinded by the light. Once it died down, they began hearing the cries of a baby. They looked to see Ambrose holding a baby in his arms and passes it to Winter. Winter. He's so small. What are those things on his hands? Ambrose. Those are inhibitor rings. With such raw power, it must be contained, as he still lacks the intelligence to use it. For his safety and those around him, whatever you do from here is up to you. He fades into mist, leaving them alone. Ironwood. We need someone to raise him until he's ready. Pietro. I will raise him. He said sternly as Ironwood nods, knowing he won't accept anyone else to do it. Later, Polendina's workshop. Pietro. Hey there, little guy. I'll be looking after you from now on. 3 years later. Shadow was waddling towards some sort of mannequin.
Pietro. No.
Shadow, that is not a toy. She's going to be your big sister. Soon. 2 years later. Ironwood arrives to take Shadow for testing and indoctrination. Pietro vehemently protests due to the child being too young, as Ironwood simply ignored him and took the child. A few months later, Penny was almost done, but Pietro got worried as to what was happening to Shadow. And what he saw was disturbing, as Shadow was in a container with wires inserted into him. Pietro, what are you doing? Ironwood, calm down, Pietro. We're just checking his levels, as strangely he doesn't pass his aura. Must be because he's an artificial being. Pietro, more like he doesn't need it. By what Ambrose believes, aura is a hindrance as people become too complacent with it. He looks at Ironwood and thinks of his idiotic semblance. Ironwood, I'm just being cautious. Pietro, more like experimental. Ironwood, regardless, he'll be sent back to you for a couple of years. After that, he'll begin his combat training. Pietro, training a 7-year-old? James, that's... Ironwood, I know, cruel, but if we want to win this upcoming war, we need our weapon. Pietro grumbles as a few hours pass as Shadow was returned to him. 1 year later. Pietro, all right, Shadow, you can open your eyes now. He did as he was told, and what he saw was a red-headed girl on a table. Shadow, who is she? Pietro, my daughter. Her name is Penny. Shadow, cool. Pietro began the procedure of transferring a piece of his soul to Penny. It took its time, but when she opens her eyes, she jolted up. Penny, what? Who? Where? Pietro, haha, calm down, little one. Penny, who are you? Pietro, I am Pietro Polendina, your father. Penny, father? She then looked at the young blonde boy. Penny, and who is that? Pietro, that's my son Shadow. Shadow, meet your big sister Penny. Shadow, hello, he said bashfully. Penny, it's nice to meet you, Shadow. The three were just having the time of their lives, but it will come to an end 1 year later. A few years later, Shadow was taken once again by Ironwood as he was subjected to intense training and missions. Pietro once again went to get Shadow, but this time he was shocked, but after a while that shock turned into rage. The once bright smile the child had was gone, now replaced by a cold and indifferent look. Pietro, what have you done? Ironwood, what any good soldier would do. Train the next generation of soldier. Pietro, this is inhumane. Ironwood, he's not completely human. Regarding that, Shadow has faunus ears. After that, Pietro took Shadow into his custody for another year, but this time he won't be going back to Ironwood. Later, Polendina's workshop. Shadow, what are you doing, sir? He said in a monotone voice. Pietro, we're leaving.